Omicron. I think that should be a transformer. And in a way, it is. This is the transformation now of COVID-19. It is so deadly that, let me see if I can get this, I think it's the Belgian Prime Minister says this should be called COVID-21.
So we should say that it was discovered in the year that it was discovered?
He says it's 3 times more infectious than the original virus. So it should be, instead of COVID-19, it should be COVID-21. 2021, that's 2. Shouldn't it be 22?
So
weird. I have no idea. So anyway, the panic began just this weekend. The World Medical Association chair demanding now national lockdowns and making sure that everyone is mandated all around the world. He says the new South African variant is a good example of the mutations and us trying to prevent every possible infection and how it can't be done. We don't know anything about its dangerousness yet, but it seems to be spreading rapidly. Now, there's no fear-mongering in this following sentence. Again, we don't know anything about its dangerousness, but it seems to be spreading rapidly. My great concern is it could lead to a variant that is as infectious as Delta, but as dangerous as Ebola.
As dangerous as Ebola? Wow.
Yeah. It might have mutated a little faster
right.
than, it's weird to go from, like, you're sick, and if you're old, you could die, like, from pneumonia kind of like thing, to blood shooting out of every orifice of your body.
That's the danger of Omicron.
Omicron.
Yeah.
Okay, so I don't think it's going to become Ebola.
Really?
Yeah.
You're going to come up and say that right now?
I'm going to come out and say that. Yeah. Now, here's the next. This is from CNN. Their headline: Omicron variant puts world in a race against time. A race against time. Huh. Now, the biostatistician professor, Sheila said the test results from Amsterdam were concerning, but more data is needed. Adding that the vaccination status and age distribution of those infected will also need to be considered before any conclusions could be made about this variant. The situation should be seen with alert rather than alarm until we know more. Okay, so that doesn't sound like Ebola, does it?
No.
Because it wouldn't really need a lot of time, Yeah, the patients came in and they were bleeding out of their eyes and boils all over their body. Give it more time. Let's see what happens.
Let's see what happens. Yeah, yes, it's a little different than the normal cough and fever, but let's give it a couple weeks.
Okay, so now here is the South African doctor who was the one who kind of found this strain. She was the first one to go, there's something else here. This is different. We've seen a lot of Delta patients during the third wave, and this one didn't fit the clinical picture. Most patients we are seeing have very, very mild symptoms, and none of them so far have been admitted to the hospital. We've been able to treat these patients conservatively at home. Also, so far, patients have not reported a loss of smell or taste, and there has been no major drop in oxygen levels with the new variant. The most prominent clinical complaint is severe fatigue for 1 or 2 days and a headache and body aches and pain.
My general like normal stance is severe fatigue. Like that's just my normal life. I wouldn't even notice this.
I wouldn't notice it either.
I just want to go back to bed.
Right. That's the way I start my day.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So again, just based on the woman who discovered the variant,
right?
That doesn't sound like Ebola.
No.
And doesn't sound like something we should worry about, really.
Yeah.
You know?
My understanding is that most of the patients they've seen with it have been younger, right? So
yeah, 40.
Yeah.
They say it's hitting people under 40.
Under 40.
Yeah. But again,
with
severe fatigue,
it's definitely not
for 1 or 2 days. Okay.
I mean, I don't think there's any other than one crazy person's.
Right.
But the media, the tone of the media coverage feels like it's
in a race against time.
That is what it feels like.
Yeah, okay. All right. So here's the truth on this. It was detected in Botswana and South Africa while we were having our turkey. Since then, Canada, Germany, the UK, Hong Kong, Belgium, Singapore, and Holland all have had cases of Omicron. No confirmed cases here in the United States. It has been found now in more than a dozen nations, most contact tracing showing travel from South Africa as the most common source. South Africa's had more than 200 confirmed cases as of yesterday. The chairwoman of the South African Medical Association assured the media that while they're closely monitoring the situation, the good news is that to date, there have been no deaths from the new variant, and, quoting, most people have mild, very, very mild symptoms, end quote. So we have the mutation. The media wants you to panic over this. There is no reason to panic over this. However, New York has declared a state of emergency. New York has declared a state of emergency despite not a single case being identified in the state.
Or the country yet, by the way.
Yes.
That will probably happen soon,
sure.
But we don't have any in the country at this time.
We probably don't know about it because the symptoms are very, very mild. The governor of California, Michigan, and New York have issued health alert warnings to public agencies, including schools, about the new variant of concern. Despite the fact there's no evidence the new variant is more virulent or deadly. Now, Stu, you're into this kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. You're into stats.
Sure.
You're into science. Mm-hmm. This show is known for its scientific breakthroughs.
Yes, mostly our 44-part series.
Right. On science in general.
On science in general,
yeah,
yes.
Yeah, mm-hmm. And I'm a doctor. So let me ask you this, and feel free to talk down to me.
Okay.
Pretend I don't know. But when you have a virus like COVID, what is the virus's goal?
To find a new host, to replicate.
To find a new host, right. What stops a virus from finding a new host?
Not being no pathway to transmit.
Okay,
right?
All right. Or the host dies.
Okay, the host could die, yes.
The host dies. When the host dies, the virus dies. Unless somebody's like, hey, let's play with Grandpa's dead body.
Right,
okay?
Which does happen in the movies often.
All the time. All the time, especially in California and New York and Michigan. So if the virus acts like, every other virus known to man, the virus looks for a way to spread faster, but be less deadly. Correct?
Usually this is what happens, yes.
Yeah. In almost all circumstances with a virus, it, generally speaking, becomes less deadly, more virulent, because that's in the best interest of the virus.
Usually that's what happens.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So let me ask you something.
And this is, by the way, why, despite the eye bleeding, Ebola has only killed 11,000 people globally since the beginning of time.
Yes. And all generally in a little area.
Very little area. It's very hard to continue the transmission lines because it tends to kill most of the people.
Kills everybody quickly, and then people are like, hey, I haven't heard from Uncle Bob in a while. I haven't heard from Aunt Helen either. Maybe we should get on these space suits and go see what happened to the village.
Right.
Okay? It doesn't spread because it kills people so quickly.
And there's tons of Aunt Helens in these villages. That's one thing you need to know.
Tons.
They're almost all named Helen.
So with that understanding, I have a very important question.
Yes.
So they don't want us to question this science at all. Because questioning Fauci is questioning science. He actually said that again this weekend.
I know. This is his defense. He is
science.
Just science.
He is science.
The voice of science.
No, you got a voice of science. So anyway, they don't want you to question anything. Well, I have a couple of questions. Let's start with a pessimistic one. Knowing how viruses generally mutate, they generally mutate like the Spanish flu did and become less deadly, more virulent. In seeing how everybody in the government and science and the WHO and the UN held an emergency meeting over the weekend, an emergency meeting for something that the person who discovered this variant said it's causing very, very mild symptoms. So let me ask you this. Pessimistic side. Do you know something that I don't know? As the UN and the WHO and Fauci, do you know, like, for instance, where this virus originally came from? And do you know maybe that it was messed around with man, and so this would react differently than your average virus? Do you know something about the makeup of this virus that you're not telling us that makes you go, good God, man, it came out of our lab. We know what it's going to mutate into.
It's very pessimistic.
Very pessimistic,
yes.
right? Or, and this is the not so pessimistic. Okay. Or are you just causing all of this fear so you can stay in control of everything?
None of these seem optimistic.
That's as optimistic as I can get.
I mean, I think you could argue, right?
Okay.
Because they have hyped how many of these things? I mean,
all of them.
All of them, right? They've all been hyped. The overwhelming majority of them, probably never read a story about, right? Like the Epsilon variant was maybe a kicker story for 2 days, right? The one that
I freaked out.
Right,
I locked myself in for 2 days.
Again, but the media didn't even freak out. There was some of that, right? And we mocked it at the time.
Right.
They are reacting differently than they have to other variants. Now, the best case scenario, I think, here is that when they had a serious variant last time, which was Delta, and it ravaged India and killed up to multiple millions of people, we didn't really do anything, right? So maybe they're just overreacting and overly concerned. This would be, I think, the optimistic take here.
Okay, I've got another optimistic take. Or the people that are in charge are so freaking racist that when they see something come from Africa, they immediately go, Ebola. They immediately go, it's bad, it's exotic. It's coming from the jungles of Africa.
The others have brought it to us.
The others have brought it to us.
Okay.
There is that possibility. They're just so racist that they immediately go, it's going to be a killer.
And that's kind of Africa's take, by the way. They're like, you guys are just punishing us for finding this thing.
Yes.
Like, why are you doing this? We shouldn't have even told you about it.
Right.
You wouldn't even have known about it for a long time.
South
and now
Africa
you've
is
banned travel.
Why are you doing this?
Yeah. Because they're saying very, very mild symptoms.
Very Very
So
mild.
why are you doing this?
So,
And it's a fair question, though we do, of course, maintain the rights to our own borders.
Yeah, of course.
Now, at least that's what I thought. I don't know if the Biden administration thought that.
May I put another log on the? Maybe they're all racists.
Okay. Sure.
Let me throw another log on that fire. Because I'm only using their words. When Donald Trump, after all kinds of people died, all kinds of evidence, this is really scary.
Yeah.
He said travel ban, and Joe Biden said that's racist.
Right.
There's no evidence that this is anything other than very, very mild symptoms. And yet we have a travel ban.
Yeah, that you'd think that the person who said the first one was racist would think this is even more racist.
Yeah, especially that it came from Africa.
Right.
What is it you're afraid of, Joe Biden? You know what? This lockdown is nothing than a racist dog whistle that these liberals in this administration are blowing at the top of their lungs.